Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's conversation, where we're going to be discovering more about the incredible film Tears Become Rain. This very special project was one of the winners of the Rupert Art Foundation's inaugural Social Impacts Arts Prize. As the name implies, this prize calls for creative ideas that have the potential to make an impact on the communities within which they were created. The prize was launched in 2019, and I think we can all agree that given the way the world has changed since then, an initiative such as this could not be more significant. Latitudes is delighted to have partnered with the Rupert Art Foundation to launch and promote Tears Become Rain, which was one of 3 projects to have been awarded the inaugural Social Impact Art Prize. The film, which was conceived of and created in the Karoo town of Graaff-Reinet, uses choral song to educate the community about drought and our precious water resources. It is an incredible product of meaningful collaboration and a beautiful example of a community-driven project. There are so many layers to the film, and to try and share the background and the incredible story of the making of the project, we put together an interactive online exhibition, which I'm just showing the link to below, and you can view it on Latitudes at this link. I highly, highly recommend that you spend some time browsing the page, as it truly is an amazing visual journey. Tonight, we are honored to bring together 3 of the key players in the making of Tears Become Rain. Visual artist David Brits, Anziske Kayster, who is the director of the Graaff-Reinet Museum, and the renowned poet Ronelda S. Kamfer. I'd like to first introduce Anziske Kayster. Anziske relocated to Graaff-Reinet from Cape Town in 1997 when she took up her position at the Graaff-Reinet Museum, and she became director in 2006. She is a cultural historian, heritage practitioner, and she is currently working towards a PhD in living heritage at the University of the Western Cape. Anziske played a critical advisory role in the film Tears Become Rain, consulting the creative team on the town's history and heritage landscape, and making sure that those were accurately portrayed. Because after 24 years at the museum, she quite rightfully regards herself as a Graaff-Reinet local. As many of you will know, Graaff-Reinet has been in the grips of a devastating drought for the past few years, and Anziske will talk more about this and about her role in the making of Tears Become Rain. Thank you, Anziske, and over to you.
Good evening, everyone. I have to say that I'm both thrilled and honored to participate in this session. I'm always delighted to talk about my involvement with the Tears Become Rain project. So thank you to everyone who invited me. David, thank you so much. Where do I start? I met David and Raven for the first time when they arrived at my office at the Graaff-Reinet Museum in 2019, I think it was, during what I call their explorative research into the concept proposal that they wished to enter into the Rupert Social Arts Prize competition then. Graaff-Reinet and apparently the entire country was by then abuzz as word of the competition had spread, and I had already fielded numerous phone calls and emails from prospective entrants wishing to expand their knowledge of the town, especially the history and heritage of the town, and of course the people and our culture. And I suppose the museum was indeed the logical point of departure to obtain the relevant information, which accounts for our apparent popularity then. My colleagues and I at the museum were accordingly quite involved for a period of time in 2019 in assisting numerous participants. But I immediately knew when David and Raven presented their draft concept to me that this was a winner in the making. The conceptualization of the musical tradition of Graaff-Reinet, coupled with the critical role and the understanding that water plays in the ethos of our community, clearly possess the potential to do justice to the heritage of our community, our vibrant and also our diverse community. Graaff-Reinet is often described glibly as a small town in the Karoo, and this description somewhat irks me because Graaff-Reinet is so much more than just a geographical locality, and it simply cannot be defined by the size of its population alone. heritage is tangible in our town. And it's also practiced intimately within this expansive setting of a dry but exceptional landscape. The landscape has a long association with the past, of course, and this past obviously precedes the town's colonial beginnings in 1786. The area is, of course, renowned as a pivotal home of the first people of South Africa, and the majority of the Graaff-Reinet populace has Khoi and San ancestry. And obviously, the life-sustaining spirit of water flows in our veins, but it also animates our connection to nature and to the environment. Water, or rather the ebb and flow of water, exerts an extraordinary power over people in this area, because its absence triggers withdrawal into what I call an ever-hopeful survival mode, whilst its presence and abundance is cause for great celebration within the community. So water is a cyclical indicator of our town's prosperity and also our good fortune. And as such, it's also an intrinsic part of our heritage and arguably the primary concept that binds all Graaff-Reinet residents, from the farmer to the teacher, from the toddler to the preacher together. And periods of drought influence the entire community. And when our dam is empty, when the Nweba dam is empty, we are united in our concern, but we are also united in our sorrow. So the Tears Become Rain project responds with insight and great sincerity to this fundamental connection that our people has with water. So that's the story about water. But the second aspect I would like to consider is the musical tradition. And I have a very short time to tell you about this. But I initially encountered the discourse on the musical tradition of Graaff-Reinet in 2005 when I met up with Marie Joritsma. When she started key informant interviews and participant observations as part of her research towards a doctoral degree. She's currently affiliated to Wits University, and she has published a number of academic papers and also a book on her research in Graaff-Reinet. And although the history of music is entirely outside my personal focus, the encounter with her work opened my eyes to this fascinating aspect of our local heritage and the role that music plays within the context of community, and more specifically religion. I mean, a study shows that music is one of the primary contributors to identity formation amongst the various cultural groups in town, and that it shows that age doesn't matter. Everybody sings at home, at school, in celebration, and of course in church. Significantly, the similarities between the different cultural groups were found to be quite remarkable, as the essence of the musical tradition was embedded almost universally in town within the Christian faith. Each church from Kroonvale to Umazazaki and within the town center itself, obviously regarded as traditionally white, had a choir. And while the character of the music reflected a particular cultural belief, the lyrics remained the same and reflected the Christian faith. I am no expert when it comes to music, but during my subsequent investigations into heritage, as you said, I'm doing my PhD in heritage, incidentally at the University of Stellenbosch and not the Western Cape. I'm an old Māori, so we're always proud about that. My research focus is into heritage, and as I studied the phenomenon, I came to appreciate the role music plays in weaving together the social fabric of our community. And once again, this project, the Tears Become Rain project, responded intuitively to this phenomenon. I observed David and Raven and Ronelda's complete understanding of what is at the heart of our community and what makes our community tick, you know. So at the end of the day, I found myself involved in the early research stage of the Tears Become Rain project, supporting David and Raven, Fiona and Temba, the team, in a number of ways. I forwarded a myriad of clips of musical performances to the team, and amidst lockdown level 5, navigated COVID-19 protocols just to obtain clips from individuals whom I considered at that stage to be suitable for the roles of the adult and the young Kabo and Kabo's grandmother, my favorite, obviously. The assistance that I received from the community in this process was absolutely tremendous. School principals forwarded clips, community leaders and ward councillors provided leads, and church ministers, of course, they were very interested. They provided great encouragement. Just to name a few instances of the unwavering support which I received. The enthusiasm and excitement was tangible, but it was also contagious. And I have to say, it was such a privilege to be part of this amazing project. And I'm sure that it will have a resoundingly positive impact on our community. And that it will not end here, because I think that it will ripple through the ethos of our community for many years to come. And I, for one, I'm looking forward to that. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anziske. It's wonderful to hear from your perspective. And yeah, I mean, watching the film, it's just incredible how much heritage and history comes together with the natural landscape. So I can see how you must have had your hands very full consulting, and you did a wonderful job. And next, I would like to jump straight in and introduce Ronelda S. Kamfer. As many of you all know, she's a highly acclaimed and award-winning South African poet. And she was commissioned to interpret the story of Tears Become Rain into what became an epic narrative poem, which was used as the lyrics for the film's choral composition. So as Ronelda is the wizard with the words, I think I'll hand straight over to you. Welcome.
Thank you. I think that for me, being asked to be a part of this project was it was a great honor, firstly, and the thing that really drew me to the project was the fact that I also have a small town sort of background, and I've always been drawn to small town and stories from small towns. And when David and Raven explained the project, and I love the title of it, Tears Become Rain, I found that so beautiful and so in line with the story and the narrative of that particular space. When you're a writer and someone comes to you with a completely well thought out sort of outline of what they need and what they expect from you, it just makes the work easier, the writing process easier. And I first heard about the Bleak Lloyd archives when I was doing my honors at UWC under Professor Anki Kroch, and she wrote a book called Historia Setau with different narratives from the archived writings. And I think that what that showed me is that, firstly, it made me very insecure about my own writing, because the way people, the writers, the poets could describe the environment and their connection to nature, and just how they valued their essence and the stories of their people, of where they komfandaan, where they come from, and the importance of that. So it's been, that sort of narrative has been sitting with me for many, many years. And when the opportunity came for me to actually attempt at writing in that narrative style, but also trying to make it sort of a modern and relevant narrative for especially to get younger readers interested in not just in the music and the visuals of it, because as a person who works with words, it's always difficult for you it's very hard to compete with those two other things. And so my attempt was to create something that included the different sort of dialects and spaces that that these stories might have traveled to, and how universal it is, but also how it tells the story of Graaff-Reinet and the community, and it's something that they feel that sort of an ownership, but also feel sort of heard and seen. And so writing the first draft of the poem came very, very easy. I think that because it has been something that's been sitting with me, and also because the story was so well put together and thought through. And when I think Raven sent me some of the clips of the music, and David sent me some of the visuals, I think that it just took on another meaning, and it just made the whole experience of telling the story and getting the sort of the feel of Graaff-Reinet and the people and the history, and how rich the history is, and how complex the history is, and how small towns are not just about, you know, the hardships and the things that make these places, give these places identity, are the people, and the fact that the whole community was involved was for me a very beautiful thing. And so I was very, very, very proud to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, you did an incredible job. I always marvel at how poets manage to encapsulate so much with so few words, and especially with a project of this scope. So congratulations. And yeah, last but not least, we'd like to introduce visual artist David Brits, who was the mastermind behind the whole project. And David's compelling practice is dedicated to investigations in public space sculpture. And his practice spans installation, printmaking, drawing, and film. He has been commissioned to create several major public sculptures by institutions such as the Desmond Tutu HIV Foundation, the Spear Arts Trust, and the Anziske South African National Gallery. As we very much know, he is the winner of the Rupert Foundation's inaugural Social Impacts Art Prize on top of all of that. And David, you had such an incredible vision for this film, and you know, you brought together so many creative minds working across so many mediums. So we really just can't wait to hear more about how it all began and how you managed to turn your ambitious visions into a reality. So over to you.
Great, Roberta, thank you. And thank you for hosting this conversation. And for Anziske and to Ronelda, thank you very much for your obviously your enlightening words, but mostly your deep and meaningful contribution to this project. So as I was introduced, my name is David Brits. I'm a sculptor and now first-time film director. On behalf of the wider Tears Become Rain team, Raven Huntsman, Fiona Deploy, Temba Stewart, together with the members of the Mzansi Choir and various musicians and actors from Graaff-Reinet, we welcome you here this evening. So the journey of Tears Become Rain started in September of 2019. And shortly after the Social Impact Arts Prize was announced during Art Week in Johannesburg, Raven Huntsman and I, who you've heard mentioned, a friend of 20 years, decided to go to Graaff-Reinet on a research trip to come up with some ideas for this prize. So Raven is an accomplished musician and music producer, and I couldn't think of actually a better person to bring along on this trip, partly because while on a national music tour, a vehicle in his band's convoy hit and decapitated a kudu just outside of town. So that was forever lodged in my memory. So off we set, and Raven and I inevitably headed to Graaff-Reinet with all sorts of preconceived ideas about what the town needed. On the first day, however, all our ideas fell on their face. So we began again, and this time humbly, and we began by talking to people. Over a week-long period, we conducted over 15 interviews with pastors, museum directors, obviously Anziske as mentioned there, teachers, shopkeepers, and archaeologists, in order to really find out what made this special town tick. So at the end of our trip, we realized that the people of Graaff-Reinet were united in two things. Number one, they were living through the most catastrophic drought in 1,000 years, and that everybody loved to sing. Okay, so what to do with this information? Well, first we added to our team the choreographer Fiona Deploy and the esteemed theatre director Temba Stewart. And together we conceptualized a mass choir event which envisioned 2,500 people gathering in Angel Square at the center of Graaff-Reinet to sing for rain. This enormous choir would use song to tell a story from the Bleak Lloyd archive of Sun oral history, which was recorded in the 1870s. This narrative, which is told by rainmaker and master storyteller Kabo, follows the story of a young Sun boy at a time of extreme drought. Crying, his tears of grief turn into rain, and abundance is restored again to the world. So thrillingly, out of 123 project entries submitted to the Social Impact Arts Prize, Tears Become Rain was announced as one of the top 6 finalists. So as part of this, we did a further residency to Graaff-Reinet, where we got the opportunity to really do a deep dive into the town's incredibly rich choral tradition. So Raven and I set about recording a dozen of the town's top choirs, spending our week in school classrooms and people's lounges, attending church services and prayer groups, recitals, school assemblies, and even a rain Thanksgiving. And in exchange, we were asked to give impromptu speeches and welcoming addresses, lead groups of people in prayer. And Raven, much to his horror, was given the surprise honor of leading the main sermon in a Sunday church service in Umasazake, which, by the way, he conducted with aplomb. No sooner had we come back from this residency that there was an intensive judging process of the top 6 projects. We had to make an oral presentation to 6 esteemed international judges and put together an exhibition at the Rupert Museum in Stellenbosch. And on a beautiful late February evening on the lawns of the Rupert Museum, in an event with canapes and champagne, on a stage and microphones, the Tears Become Rain team was announced as one of the 3 grant recipients of the Social Impact Arts Prize. And then, 3 weeks later, the national lockdown was announced. And after stewing in the unknown for a few months as to what we were exactly going to do now, it was decided that we would pivot and to tell the story of Tears Become Rain in the medium of film. So via Zoom, good old Zoom, Temba, Raven, Fiona, and I adapted the Tears Become Rain story into a screenplay. And we commissioned a woman who you've just met, the highly award-winning poet, South African poet, Ronelda S. Kamfer, to interpret the Tears Become Rain story from the Bleak Lloyd archive into an epic narrative poem. And coinciding with the level 3 lockdown and the lifting of the interprovincial travel ban, we took a tiny gap and headed to Graaff-Reinet for a 2-week-long creative workshop, which we held at the John Rupert Theatre. Our team handpicked 12 of Graaff-Reinet's finest singers, with the help of Anziske, to form an all-star Mzansi choir, reflecting the diversity of languages, neighborhoods, and demographics of the town. In the John Rupert Theatre, Raven and Fiona worked with the choir and a set of local musicians and gave them Ronelda's epic poem to translate into a song. This was actually the choir's first time singing together before, as they'd been drawn from many different choirs in the town. And at the end of the week, never having recorded their voices before, recorded the musical song that forms the backbone and this golden thread that you hear in the film. Simultaneous to that, Temba and I, with a very small team, worked with 3 first-time actors that Anziske cast for us, and filmed a series of live action sequences in the landscape. So back in Cape Town, it was post-production time, and we added some very important collaborators to our team, an editing and post-production team, as well as the very important voice of Trocho Denver, who is a Khoisan language activist and rapper who became the narrator of the Tears Become Rain film. Terocha's grandmother is from Graaff-Reinet, and he spent much of his childhood there. We then commissioned the gifted Ugandan-born illustrator, Fred Mpuga, to create a series of animated sequences which imbue this film with a sense of magical realism. It's also worth mentioning here that the two animated animals that you see in the film, the eland and the grauwnagame, were the two most important rain-making animals for the Kam. I think of Tears Become Rain as a form of social sculpture. The recent fires at the UCT libraries, which actually destroyed some of the precious photographic material that forms part of the Bleak Lloyd archive, show us just how urgent a task it is for creatives to continually take the stories from the archives and put them back into the communities from which they come. As Anziske mentioned, the Kam storytellers who contributed to the 2,000 plus notebooks that make up the Bleak Lloyd archive lived only a few hundred kilometers from Graaff-Reinet. The unsettling violence of the last month has shown South Africans just how urgent it is to address the abject poverty and hopelessness that have such a stranglehold on so many of our people, particularly our youth. Tears Become Rain may not be the final answer, but socially impactful arts-based projects like ours have an important part to play. Celebrating our shared heritage and cultural diversity, as opposed to using our differences to tear us further apart, is a pretty good start. The arts inspire hope. It is my express commitment, therefore, to finish what we started and to realize the Tears Become Rain project into the mass choir event we originally envisioned. Film is an exceptionally collaborative medium, and we could not have done it without the hundreds of kind-hearted people from Graaff-Reinet, particularly the singers, the musicians, and the actors who trusted us to take them on a journey whose destination was unknown. But it was they who indeed took us on a journey, and it is something that has changed my heart forever. This is their story, in their words, and in their voice. I thank you, and I hope you enjoy the film.
Thank you so much, David. Such an incredible project that you've all put together, and there's just three of you tonight. But as you say, so many people contributed to this film, and I put a link down to it below, and I really think it speaks for itself. And thank you all for sharing your stories. But I would like to invite the viewers to watch the film for themselves, because it really is the most phenomenal project, bringing together so many creative minds. So from Latitudes and from the Rupert Art Foundation, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Thank you, David, Anziske, and Ronelda. And I hope you all enjoyed watching this, and that you go on to watch the beautiful film, Tears Become Rain. Thank you, everybody.